both in 1998. And during that time in my aviation career, I was looking for something new, something more. I wanted to find more women who were involved in aviation, and I also wanted to find more LGBT community who were involved in aviation. So I searched, and in my search, I found the Women in Aviation organization. And part of their mission is Women in Aviation International is an organization that encourages the advancement of women in all aviation career fields and interests. And I thought, perfect. That's who were involved in aviation. And you've all heard the stories of people with seniority of our age. Back in the day, aviation was so difficult for women to get involved in. Or back in the day, women was very difficult for a woman to become a leader in management in aviation. Or it was difficult for a woman to become a pilot or to be a leader in military in aviation, and especially someone who was LGBT. Back in the day, you hear us tell all these stories, and you're thinking, well, Jan, today it's 2019. Things have changed. Times are different. We've moved on from that. We've evolved. Everything's so much better. Well, yes, you're correct, because things are better. We have evolved. We have moved forward, for the most part. But let's be honest. We know every day we're hearing stories about sexism, racism, #MeToo, homophobia, transphobia, and others, especially in the aviation industry. But also let me be clear about why we're here today. We are not here to scold anyone or to shame anyone, nor are we trying to change anyone's minds on their political beliefs or their religious beliefs. We are simply here to talk about inclusive leadership and how by treating each other with dignity and respect, we can have a tremendous positive impact on the aviation industry in terms of employee morale, productivity, safety, customer satisfaction, and the money managers are like this. Yes, even profitability. My personal mission as Vice President of the NGPA, Captain at American Airlines, and Women in Aviation member is to do everything in my power to make aviation and the entire industry a better place for everyone. Sorry, my voice. I believe that if we become the types of leaders who respect and embrace our differences, no matter what they are, and we create an environment where everyone can come to work as their true, authentic selves and be who they really are, we are truly leading through inclusion. And the NGPA and Women in Aviation are doing that together. This panel today is making history, like I said. The NGPA is proud to be building new relationships with organizations like Women in Aviation and many others around the world in aviation. And we are having these important discussions on how to change and how to make your leadership more inclusive. We are changing the aviation world and opening the door for so many, black, white, gay, straight, male, female, transgender, for all. These conversations are building bridges and having a positive effect on the entire aviation industry. And we want to make sure that we continue to build on this momentum and success. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. You're in for a really big treat today. We have three incredible women, all leaders in the aviation industry, each with a unique story of how the airline industry and the aviation industry is working towards equality and inclusion for the LGBT community and for all minorities. At the end of the presentation, there'll be time for question and answer, so please, after each one speaks, hold your question if you have it for that person until the end, and we'll get to everybody after they've all spoken. Our first presenter is American Airlines Captain Kathi Durst. In 1981, Kathi graduated from the United States Air Force Academy in the Air Force's second class that admitted women.
Go Air Force Super Navy.
Kathi has been a pilot and a check airman with American Airlines for over 30 years. In 2012, Kathi became the first female pilot in a fleet management leadership position when she took the position of fleet captain on the Boeing 737. 2 years later, in 2014, Kathi also broke new ground when she was chosen as one of our chief pilots in our largest hub, Dallas-Fort Worth. Kathi lives in Las Colinas, California, Las Colinas, Texas, with her beautiful spouse, Sherry, who's a retired American Airlines flight attendant. Next, we have Captain Lauren Lee. Lauren has been employed by United Airlines for 25 years and is a captain on the Airbus 320 based in New York City. Prior to flying with United, Lauren was a Pan Am Boeing 747 first officer. Lauren holds type ratings in the Boeing 747, the 777, Airbus 320, just to name a few. And she also holds a commercial glider certificate and is learning to fly seaplanes. Woo! She recently earned her remote pilot certificate, which allows her to fly unmanned aircraft and drones commercially. Lauren recently underwent a gender transition while flying full-time as captain at United Airlines. In a few moments, you will learn about her inspiring story and her journey, and how United and Lauren's co-workers' support were vital to her success. Lauren's interests are traveling, recreational flying, on and off road motorcycling, and scuba diving. She has 2 adult children and lives in Rhode Island. Our third panelist is Suzanne Boda. Suzanne has been a driving force for diversity, inclusion, and equality in aviation industry for over 3 decades. Suzanne began her career with Northwest Airlines in 1983 as a passenger service representative and Japanese interpreter in Minneapolis. Today she serves as Senior Vice President, Los Angeles for American Airlines, where she is charged with developing and achieving American strategic goals as it continues to strengthen its presence in Los Angeles and throughout Southern California. She has been a strong advocate for the right of LGBT community, for women, and for those with disabilities, and was the founding member of Employee Business Resource Group to further these causes at Northwest Airlines in the 1980s. Today she serves on the board of directors at the American Association of People with Disabilities, as executive co-sponsor of American Airlines Pride Employee Business Resource Group, and recently served as executive sponsor of Americans Women Leadership Program. Suzanne lives in Los Angeles with her husband George. She's an avid snow and water skier, runner, and enjoys spending time with her family. So join me in welcoming these 3 amazing women.
I'm going to be doing a little bit of this because I got to click the slide too, so bear with me on that. Note to self, get a remote mouse, right? So thank you so much for being here today and for taking time out of your busy life just to come to the conference in general, and also to come specifically to this panel. We didn't know what kind of response we'd have, and I'm glad that you're all here. So thank you so much for coming here. I was asked to speak specifically about leadership through inclusion, and before I get into that, I really want to define diversity and inclusion. Sometimes those words are used together. People, they're almost always used together, actually. You see it in advertisements for businesses, recruiting, anything like that. And you'll even see sometimes people will try to use these words interchangeably. So if you've never thought about these words, let me tell you, they're vastly different. I think our HR departments, the military, big organizations especially, they realize you have to have a diverse group, that there's value in that. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So I think we've got a ways to go, but I think they've done a pretty good job of hiring not only the LGBT, but people of color, different ethnic backgrounds, religious views, that sort of thing. But inclusion is completely different. Inclusion, think of it as if, diversity would be, I invite you to a dance, come to the dance, okay? But inclusion is, I come across the floor and I say, will you get out on the floor and dance with me? That's inclusion, okay? You can be invited to the table and not serve dinner. So They're very different topics, so keep that in mind as we go on throughout this hour. Inclusive practices are very important because all pilots should feel like they're part of their community and feel a sense of belonging. As a leader, there needs to be consideration of the diverse needs and the backgrounds of the people that are working for you. And you need to be able to create a workplace where you're welcoming everybody to come and bring all of their talents. The sense of belonging, you know, really, if you think about it, if you feel like you belong to a group, then you're going to show up to work with a better attitude, and you're going to have more to offer. You'll be willing to offer that, and you'll perform your duties a whole lot better, not just your technical skills. And by the way, I'm going to be talking about pilots because I was a manager of pilots, but everything I'm saying could be any department, it could be any work group, any company. Inclusion goes across the board worldwide. So, you know, if you feel like you're included and what you have to say is valued, then you're going to show up at work and perform not only your skills, your technical skills that you were hired to do, but also your interactions with other work groups that you work with. In our case as pilots, we work, you know, with flight attendants, we work with mechanics, we work with gate agents, and even our customers. Okay, so some of the benefits, this certainly is not a complete list. You can think of others, I'm sure, but in the interest of time, I only came up with these. Differences of the people that come together. I mean, well, everybody in the world is different. We were created that way, but we all have something in common, and especially everybody in this room, we have aviation. So just talk that, and you'll find that we have more in common than we have different. Also, if you feel included at work as a pilot, then you're going to have an increased understanding of and accept of diversity. So, you know, while I may be or I am a lesbian, you know, I could still be, I could be biased against, you know, people of color. So, you know, whatever your background is, wherever you come from, we all have some internal biases, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. But being open to diversity and inclusion, especially inclusion as a leader, you know, you're going to be able to invite everybody to expect differences. They'll see a difference there. Training outcomes are a lot better. I instructed in the military, I instructed at American Airlines, and I found that the groups that work together, even though they could be vastly different, you know, just you could have two straight white men together that disagreed because one's Republican, one's Democrat, you know, whatever it is, your difference, if you can work together despite those differences, then you're going to have a more successful outcome in training. And when that happens, of course, you're going to be performing better at work as well. Because things, you know, operations always go south, and you have to work together as a team to come together and solve the problem. And lastly, all pilots' needs are met when they feel included, and when you do that, it does indeed provide a greater resource. I'm talking to you managers now. Pilots aren't going to call in sick or find other excuses and they're not coming to work because they like the people they work with and they feel valued when they come to work. Of course, the core aspects of leadership, which is what I'm talking about, such as setting a direction and biasness. Depending on where you grew up, what socioeconomic background you had, you know, you're going to come to work with kind of that ingrained in you. It is what it is. It's not bad. It's just you're different. Okay? And we all have them, but an inclusive leader is going to be mindful not only of their own implicit biases, but the implicit biases maybe of the corporation. You know, and they're looking for a way to help ensure that there's fair play at work. That's something that an inclusive leader would do. There's a danger in a singular story. You know, and it's been said to not, that we shouldn't sum up others based on limited information. So if you spend time to get to know somebody sitting in the cockpit of cruise, and you start to talk about, you'll find something that you have in common, and you'll get to know them a little bit better. To be more inclusive, you have to understand these implicit biases in order to break a habit. And I wanted to share right now a riddle that I heard when I was in elementary school. And if you have heard this, please do not shout out the answer, and do not tell the person beside you. So I'm just going to say the riddle, give you time to think about it, and I'll say it again, and we'll talk about it now. Ready? All right, a man and his son are in a terrible accident, and both are rushed to the hospital in critical care. The doctor looks at the boy and exclaims, "I cannot operate on this boy, he's my son." How can this be? Okay, let me read it again. Flip the page, that was bad planning on my part. A man and his son are in a terrible accident, and both are rushed. So again, cognizance. Be aware that you have implicit bias. Try to find out what they are. Try to find out if you're leading what your group thinks and try to solve that. Curiosity. Because different ideas and experiences enable growth. Highly inclusive leaders they have a mindset and a desire to understand how others view the experience in the world, and they're very tolerant of ambiguity. They're okay with things being uncomfortable and different ideas coming. Thirdly, cultural intelligence, because not everybody sees the world through the same cultural frame. Suzanne, who grew up in Boda, Minnesota, and I won't tell her story, but she ended up moving to Japan, and I'm sure she could be talking about this all day long, but we all have a different mindset and a frame that we think about, and highly inclusive leaders, they're confident and effective in cross-cultural interactions. And let me give you an example of someone else that was. And my uncle was a firstborn American from Romania, and he married my mom's twin, and they had a long career in the military, and when he retired, TRW hired them to go. They came up, they happened to be living right below them, so they come up to my aunt and uncle's apartment. Money's exchanged. The landlord and the two grown sons wrestle this refrigerator outside, and they say, "Good night, thank you very much," shut the door, crash, boom, bang. They drop this refrigerator, it damages the banister of the stairs and goes through the wall at the base of the landing. And the landlord was insistent that they pay for the damages. They said, if you had not brought this refrigerator over here to run, we would not have had the opportunity to buy it, and this damage wouldn't have been caused. And I could belabor this, but my time's running out. But it got so ugly that they went to the base, that the landlord did, and tried to garnish my uncle's wages on this, okay? And my uncle was like, "That's ridiculous. I didn't even own the refrigerator anymore. I wasn't there. I was sitting on my couch. You got to drop," so you can imagine. But because he was first culture, he was first generation Romanian, and he thought, let me think like they think. And he gave it a lot of thought, and I'm telling you, I can't tell you how ugly this got. It's like an international incident. My uncle went downstairs and he said, "Look, it's really my parents' fault, because if they had not birthed me, I would have been alive because I commitment, because staying the course is hard. Being inclusive of diversity is a big challenge. It takes time and energy, which are two of the most precious commodities of any leader. Intriguingly, the research that I read on this was that the leaders that were highly inclusive, the actual intrinsic reward that that enhanced performance, that was secondary to why they were inclusive. And really, all of them stated that their primary motivation for pursuing inclusivity was because it aligned with the way that they thought and their own personal values and their need to be. I'm going to talk to you, but I want to say, just in summary of all of this, that an inclusive leader values, they embrace, and they provide a sense of belonging to all of their people so that they can show up as their true authentic selves and perform well and to the best of their abilities. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Lee, and it's certainly my pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank the NGPA for inviting me, especially Jan Anderson. Also, the WAI and their WAI board, who did actually come down to our NGPA conference in Palm Springs about a month ago, and we had a fabulous time down there with the NGPA. And I'd like to thank all my friends for being here today to support me. Thank you very much. I usually give a talk that lasts quite a while, sometimes nearly an hour, and Jan's giving me about 10 minutes today. So, just like on the airplane, before the screen, you watch a movie, it says it's been formatted for time, and so this is going to be pretty cool. So my wife, we'll start back. Way back in 1962. Late spring day, I was born. At the moment I was born, the doctor took one look at me, looked at my parents, and said, "It's a boy." And I wish I could have raised my hand and said you made a mistake, but they wrote that down on my birth certificate, and now that's in about a half century I've had to deal with the problem. About age 3, I started actually showing signs of this. I began to understand that I should have been a girl, not a boy. My grandmother picked this up in me. I showed interest in female things, feminine things. However, being in the 60s, somehow I figured out very early on that this was a really, really bad thing. And if I did these things, life was not going to be pleasant. So I thought this was a horrible, shameful secret that I had.
Great story, so.
Yes. All right. And I went to hide it. I simply hid it, I compartmentalized it, I put it away, and I lived a role that everybody expected from me. That of being a boy, and then a young man, and then an older man. I went to Catholic school for 12 years with this issue in my head. One thing that happened, though, is that it forced me, or caused me, every night when I went to bed, to pray to God to fix me. And by fix me, it's either make this go away, or let me wake up in the morning as a girl and get on with my life as I was supposed to be. I did not think another person like me existed in the whole wide world. I thought I was the only one who felt this way. It wasn't until I was 18 years old when I started college. I went to the college library one day researching transportation. So this is back when we had card catalogs. I don't know if anybody has card catalogs anymore. But I'm flipping through this card catalog. I pull out this big long drawer, I'm flipping through this card catalog. And of course, transportation and transsexual were pretty close together, and I saw this word I had never heard before. And there were books in that library about this condition. And I read them very secretly, hiding in a corner of the library so nobody would see me. And that's when I first found out that A, this was a condition, and B, there were some other people in the world like me. And C, there were treatments for this, but I wanted to be an airline pilot. And there was no way I could possibly do this and want to be an airline pilot. So I did all the right things, everything that was expected of me. I went to school, got a degree in engineering, got all my flight ratings, I got married, moved to Rhode Island, got a job, had kids, had a very normal life. Raised my kids, we traveled, went to work, did all the right things, took care of my yard. The whole time I compartmentalized how I felt inside. I never acted on it, never did anything about it, just compartmentalized it. Every minute of my life, though, I was aware of it. It's like being in a room with a very loud machine operating. And if you're doing something busy work, you're working, you don't really notice the noise even though it's there. But the second you had a quiet moment, the the noise got really loud. I'm like, oh, that's really loud. And that's the way the gender felt to me. So I spent about a half a century living like this, being pretty miserable inside, putting on the face of a happy person, and going about my life like everybody expected. I was actually watching not too long, a couple of years ago, MSNBC has this program called Lock Up Raw, where they're in prisons with these prisoners, and they talked to some of them. And one guy was a mass murderer, he'd been locked up for life, and they brought him out in chains, sat him in a chair. And they asked, the interviewer asked him, do you wish you didn't do this? Because I have not done this. And the prisoner goes, yeah, of course. But I've built a life here. I've been here for the rest of my life. There's things we do here. We play cards on Tuesday. We watch the football game on Saturdays. I've built a life here. It's not the life I wanted, but it's the life I have, and I've made it work. And that's kind of how my life was for half a century. The only person who ever knew or ever told was my wife, and that was before we even got married. That I had gender issues, but we both just assumed and felt it would never amount to anything because I can't, right? I'm an airline pilot, I'm a husband, a father. So, we'll race forward to 2013. My brother had recently died of cancer at age 45. My mom had fallen, broken her hip, gone to a nursing home, and began to have a series of strokes that eventually killed her. But I spent several months there in Cleveland caring for her. And this kind of forced me to reevaluate my life. I'm thinking, someday I'm going to get this cancer diagnosis, or I'm going to have a heart attack, or I'm going to be on my deathbed myself. And I've never lived a day of my life as myself. So while I was in that nursing home, my mother was unresponsive. She was sleeping most of the time. I actually pulled out my computer and I started researching what gender identity issues are and what being transgender is. And after spending many, many, many hours reading the material, I still didn't think I could do anything about it. There's also YouTube videos people would post of their gender transitions. And I would start to watch these. And I found one, I came across one that this person was me. She described my life up to that point exactly. Also at this point, I was living in my mother's home where I was taking care of her. And she was never coming home ever again because of her stroke. She was unable to care for herself in any way, shape, or form. One night I came home, I opened up one of the closets because I had to deal with all this stuff now. And the old family photo albums were there, like 5 photo albums full of black and white photos. Anybody? I pulled all those albums out, dropped them on the floor, and I started flipping through them. They were from about the time I was born until probably about the time I left for college. There was photos in there. One thing I noticed after going through about 3 books is there was not a single photo of me as a child with a smile on my face. I had to go back and look just to make sure. So, like I said, I found this YouTube video of this woman named Emma who lived actually over in France. And she described a life that was just like mine. And she went through her life up to that point. Her face had the same look on mine, no smiles. She went through all the motions of life and appeared to everybody in the world to have a great life, but internally she was miserable. And then she actually decided to go for a transition. And she started taking the female hormones and everything and started living as a woman. And the photo she posted on her face was nothing but the most genuine, happy smiles. And when I saw that for the first time in my life since I was a little child, I broke down and cried. So I think, why can't I ever be happy? So I went back to Rhode Island to hang out for a little bit of time with my spouse. And I'm sitting there one night watching TV and I go, I have to talk to somebody about this. I didn't say what or why, but she goes, I know you do. So I found an amazing therapist who deals with gender identity issues. And that was October of 2013. I didn't go to transition, I went just to make the noise stop. So I can just deal with the next 20, 30 years that I get to live on this earth. And over time, talking to her, bearing that kind of thing is not healthy. And so in 2014, as an experiment, I started hormone therapy. I actually started taking female hormones. And after about 6 months, I knew I was never going back. I felt so right in my head, finally having the right chemistry in my brain. That led to another big problem though, right? The FAA, we have medical certificates as pilots. At this point, my wife knew, and the therapist knew, and nobody else on planet Earth, and the doctor knew. My medical was due in about 4 months. So I started researching, what's the FAA going to do to me when I tell them I'm doing this? And it wasn't good. The pilots I found, the stuff I read about, everybody would get grounded for anywhere from 4 months to over a year, while the FAA demanded evaluations and studies and medical tests, psychological evaluations. All these pilots eventually got their medicals, but it took a long time and a lot of money. And I was not too happy with the prospect of that. So I decided to try something different. I researched what the FAA wants as far as tests, reports, etc. I gathered all the information. I even hired a psychiatrist, and I ordered a psychiatric evaluation on myself. I got all this information. I wrote the FAA an amazing cover letter. It described exactly what their requirements are, and what they're looking for, and how I met all those requirements, and how all that information is in this packet. And about 2 months before my medical was due, I took that packet to, carried it around for about 10 days before I finally screwed up the courage to put that in the mail and send it. The upshot of that was, after one little pushback from the FAA and a follow-up letter, they came and gave me my medical uninterrupted, and I was the first person to do that. Things are a bit better now, but pilots are still being grounded in the quest for the medicals. This is when I met the NGPA. One of their pilots had an article written about her, and I managed to contact her and said, is there life at the airlines after transition? And she told me there was. Early 2015, I notified United Airlines Human Resources. Scariest thing I ever did. This is the job I love. This is the passion I have in life, is piloting aircraft and being an airline pilot. And this is where the leadership or inclusion comes in. I work for a company that already had built a culture of diversity and inclusion, not tolerance, inclusion. And I walked into that HR office with a letter saying, here's what I wanted to do. And she said, how can we make this work for you? What do you need from us? And they did everything that they could possibly do to make it the easiest transition. It was easier than I ever thought it could. At this point, though, I was still living my life male. Even though I was on hormones and everything. And finally, over a year of being on hormones, my therapist said, you know, if you're going to do this, you really got to start presenting as Lauren. So I did away from work for a couple of months. The big transition at work came in November. So in September, I went and had some surgery done, and I had to take 2 months off. And the surgery was on my face to get rid of some very male features I had. And after 2 months, I came back to work as Lauren. Now, before I left, I had gotten the current flight CQ event done. I had done my landings current. I left for 2 months, and I came back. It was like I was gone from vacation. I did not talk to a single manager. No one came and met me. I had come in a week before and got a new ID. I just came back and flew my next trip, except I was wearing a female pilot uniform with a female ID and my female name. And I had an all-female flight crew for the first 2 months. A year later, I went and had my bottom surgery, got that completed. When I asked for some time off, I said I needed 10 weeks, and that brought me back about December 21st of that year. And I went, and the HR lady said, you know what? That's the holidays, you know. And I'm thinking, they probably want me back sooner to fly, because they're always showing up pilots. And she goes, you stay home and enjoy your holidays. You come back in January, and you enjoy yourself. So they're always very, very helpful and very friendly to me. 5 years ago, I was still hiding a secret inside of me that I never thought I would share with another human being, that I would take it to my grave. But due to the help of allies, the love and support of friends and family, working for a company that had developed a very inclusive culture, it was leaders that really got it and really built that culture. I now live a very happy and authentic life.
discussion here, and I said, I have to put heels on because I'm so short, and I can see why. So, yeah. Lauren, thank you for sharing your story. That was amazing. And Kathi, thanks for sharing the information. And I want to also thank Jan and GPA for allowing me to be part of this amazing team up here, and to Women in Aviation International, and such an amazing group all together. So, so thanks so much. Obviously, everybody's working hard to promote diversity and inclusion and equality within our industry. And it's really an honor to be here together to be an ally that can support all these things as well. So let's see here. Where to start? I'm going to tell you a story about my life too. It's I tell you what, Lauren, you're a really hard act to follow. And those of you who know me know I'm never really speechless, but I'm kind of speechless right now. So throughout my time in aviation, as many of us in this room, and as Jan said, we have about 120 years together, so you can kind of do the math, right? There's a lot of change that's gone on in this industry, not only from an airline perspective, from a people perspective. And without a doubt, being part of this industry's rise to become one of the most open and supportive career options for members of the LGBT community has really made me tremendously proud. We still have a long way to go, obviously, but I know that getting us to this point was not an accident. And it happened because the people in this room and so many others who came before us stood up to discrimination, exposed homophobia and transphobia in the workplaces, and refused to accept status quo any longer, regardless of the risk their courage might carry. So for that, your allied colleagues like me are eternally grateful, and I'd like to thank each of you and give you a round of applause. So embracing diversity and inclusion is deeply personal to me. It's a part of sort of who I am. And I'm fortunate to have grown up with parents in, as Kathi said, in a very, very small towns. We moved around a lot in Minnesota. But our parents instilled in myself and my siblings the idea that everyone in this world is equal. And no matter where you're from, no matter what you believe or who you love, you are an equal person to each of us. They taught us that people are just people. And we all basically want the same things in life: happiness and to be treated equally with dignity and respect. They worked really hard to teach my sister, brother, and me that value, the value in that belief. And their lessons included real-life experiences to prove that it was true. My father's a minister, and as I said, we moved around a lot, and my parents served in every community as our town's sort of unofficial but official welcoming committee, okay? So we were the go-to home for foreign exchange students, for people that needed a bit of help in life, for people that just needed a cup of coffee or a hot meal or an empathetic ear. And I'll never forget my mother saying, "Come on, kids, put another few plates on the table. We've got friends coming, and don't forget, let them eat first," because we always just had what we had, right? So as kids, though, it gave us exposure to people from different cultures, different belief systems, and different lives than we were living. This wasn't necessarily common in small-town Minnesota back in the mid-'70s and the late '60s, but as I look back, those experiences really have proven to be invaluable in my life and those of my siblings as well. Our parents were great role models for us, and the only thing that they had, that they insisted on was one firm rule that before each of us left the nest, they would support us in anything we wanted to do. Anything that we wanted to be was possible in their eyes, but they wanted us to experience other countries and other cultures before we grew up. We as brother and sisters thought that they just wanted to get rid of us. That might have been true, because we were kind of rabble-rousers. But we took it to heart, and we all took the bait.
So I was fortunate enough, as Kathi mentioned, to go to Japan as a Rotary exchange student. And if any of you have been exchange students, you know that it is a full immersion experience. And it was the best thing that I had done in my life. It inspired me so much to learn about other cultures, other languages, and other people in general, that I went on to pursue a degree in college in Asian Studies with an emphasis on Japanese and also a major in Spanish. And coming out of college with that, you have no idea what to do, by the way. So ever since, though, I've been able to go around the globe a number of times, testing my parents' belief about people. And they were, of course, as our parents always are, 100% correct. As we know, in every corner of the world and in every walk of life, we all just want happiness and respect. So taking the time to learn about each other requires us to withhold our judgments and step out of our comfort zone sometimes. But when we do that, we begin to look at others as they are, people just like you and I. And that's how we embrace our differences and truly celebrate our diversity. Throughout my career, I've been fortunate to have been surrounded by those from diverse backgrounds, diverse thoughts, and diverse beliefs. I've spent a lot of my career outside of the United States, and that has really strengthened my ability to view the world through different lenses. I've also primarily been part of teams in my airline career where being LGBT was more accepted on the customer service side and in the flight attendant groups. Even in a relatively accepting environment, however, I can't pretend to know what it was like being a member of the LGBT community then. Nonetheless, being an LGBT pilot, mechanic, or fleet service team member. Having grown up the way I did and seeing the inequality, people not being able to be who they are, really bothered me. I knew I had to help support people and do what I could to make a difference. I joined employee business resource groups, supporting the LGBT community as well as a professional women's network. I participated in every demonstration, every walk, every run, every sit down. You get the message, right? And I've been fortunate to have a great career in the airline industry. Work is always important, but today I've reached a point in my life where I believe my real purpose is to help guide the world's largest airline to do the right things to support equality for all. But I'm still not averse to going to a good demonstration, believe me. Let's see here. Sorry, I messed up here. Nobody should live in fear of being themselves. Fewer among us are made to feel that way today, but until every person in every workplace in the world feels that way, our work is not complete. That's why I'm honored to be representing American Airlines here today, a company with a proud history of industry leadership on diversity and inclusion. We were the first major airline to implement both sexual orientation and gender identity non-discrimination policies in the workplace, and the first to establish a company-recognized LGBT employee business resource group, known today as Pride, for which I'm honored to serve as co-executive sponsor. We were the first major commercial airline with an African-American pilot when Captain Dave Harris took flight in 1964. And we were the first with a female pilot when Bonnie Taberzi Caputo got her wings in 1973. And the first to tell the United States government we would not separate families on our airplanes. That we're really proud of as well. These are just a few highlights that I believe underscore the fact that focusing on diversity and inclusion isn't new for American Airlines or for other airlines. Obviously, United is equally as focused. It's been ingrained, though, in our culture over many decades. It's not a surprise that we've been recognized for this. For 16 years in a row, we've been recognized by the Human Rights Campaign with the highest possible rating in the prestigious Corporate Equality Index, scoring a perfect 100% every year since it launched. They also honored American Airlines as one of the 2017 best places to work for LGBT equality. Last year, we were named one of Logo TV's top 25 trailblazing companies for serving as a pioneer and advocate in the LGBT community. And we're named one of the best corporations for inclusion by the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. The list goes on, but in the interest of time, I'll stop there. My point is this: when values like diversity and inclusion become part of the fabric of who we are as people, as corporations, and really as a society, we begin to look at the world around us differently. When we show compassion for one another and celebrate our differences, the world can and will change for the better. Diversity, inclusion, and equality aren't won in a 100-yard dash. This is a marathon that takes everyone moving together for the common goal. But if we work together to do our part, we can make the world a much more inclusive place, one step at a time. Thanks for having me here today.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. Let's have one more round of applause. To the fourth floor. All right, as I said before, the NGPA's mission is to build, support, and unite the LGBT community aviation worldwide. But we've done a lot of great work so far, but we have a lot of work to do. And one of the things that's going to help us take diversity and inclusion and LGBT equality to the next level is our allies. And this slide talks and shows the NGPA's ally symbol. And for the pilots in the room, if you're looking at the NGPA alone, the top part of it, what does that look like to you? Anybody have any idea? You're out there taxiing around on the runway. A taxiway sign. It's supposed to represent a taxiway sign. So the A in this is duality of representation. It means National Gay Pilots Association, and also that you are an ally of the NGPA. Because when you're taxiing around and you see the little black square taxi sign, that's the taxiway that you're on. So you're on the ally taxiway is what you are if you are wearing this and supporting the NGPA. And Chris Cree, our ally support chair, is the person in charge of, or that was the creative genius behind that. Chris, stand up and say thank you. Chris. Chris is taking on the role of our allies chair at the NGPA, and we are very grateful for him for all the work that he's been doing with our allies. And every good leader needs a toolbox to keep their tools in, and they look for tools that are going to help them become an exceptional leader. They want to find that ace in the hole, that big wow factor, something that's going to set them apart from all other leaders and reach their employees, have a positive effect on all their coworkers, and even impress and blow away other leaders. Well, we believe that that tool is very simple. It's leadership through inclusion. And the NGPA has created an inclusion training team. And what we do, our team members go around to colleges, universities, flight schools, unions, corporations, airlines, and we speak to leadership and management about leadership through inclusion for the LGBT and all inclusiveness for all of their employees. And we've been very successful so far. And as I told you, our mission is to build, support, unite the LGBT aviation community. But every good organization also needs a destination. And our destination is equal, authentic, respected everywhere. And with your help and with leadership through inclusion, we can get there. Thank you very much. We have a few minutes left, and we're open for business for questions for any of the panelists or myself. Anything you have? Questions, comments, stories, anything?
Yeah.
Yeah. Karen said that Lauren's bio picture, she had an incredible smile on her face. Yes, I saw some hands.
This is for Lauren, but can be addressed to the whole panel. When you were going through your transition, for lack of a better word,
That's the correct.
That's the word.
well, yeah, I wasn't sure, didn't want to assume anything. I know you said that your employer, American, or United,
It's United.
was very inclusive and accepting. What were you looking for in your leadership, on your side? Not just
The
something
leaders had
that-
already provided a bunch of things to me that helped me realize that I could actually deal with them and actually have a positive response. One of which is our diversity statement very clearly had gender identity listed in it. We have our working together guidelines, which is our employee handbook. And in there was actually on page 10, not buried way in the back, but on page 10 was gender transition guidelines. And they spelled out all the responsibilities for a person who wanted to transition, the responsibilities of managers and management, as well as responsibilities for other employees. It was all very clearly spelled out. Also, my company was also very active in pride activities, going to pride parades and sponsoring pride parades, sponsoring things like NGPA, sponsoring things like WAI. So, and then there were laws, federal laws that had been enacted fairly recently at the time that also protected gender identity in the workplace. But it was still a leap of faith, of course, to walk into that office. I mean, it's like toothpaste coming out of a tube, right? Once you squirt it out there, once you tell that you're transgender, you're never taking that back. And like I said, this was a career that I loved more than most anything in life. And so, does that answer your question? I mean, I had a good feeling before I went in to talk to them that the policies were in place. As Kathi was saying, though, there's a difference between being tolerated and being included. And I was just afraid I was simply going to be tolerated in my job.
So, for me, I'm trying to excel and become a better leader. Obviously, I think we all are in this room over here, especially through inclusion. What I just like to try and get the other side, as in if somebody were to come to me with this, I would like to know how to react. For me, it's a personal. It doesn't have anything to do with professional. As long as you handle your job in an appropriate and professional manner, it is your choice. So it's one of those, and I feel like I explained that aspect a little.
Well, day in, day out, I don't go to work and say, I'm Lauren, I'm transgender. I just go to work and do my job as a pilot, as a good person. I feel a lot of my advocacy is simply just being a good person. I feel most of my co-pilots realize I'm transgender, and I just be a good captain. And I'm hoping that when they call their wife that night or their husband that night, and they say, hey, I think my captain's transgender, or my husband or my captain's transgender, that their spouse says, oh, how is that? And he says, it's fine. You know, I fly with so many people who have never, ever met a transgender person before. I'm the first that they ever meet. Once in a while, we have the conversation. Everybody's always been very open, very accepting. I had certain expectations when I went to work, one of which, it's a very social job. We go out on layovers and we have a good time. One of the expectations was that probably 80% of the time, my co-pilots, when we get to the hotel, would say, hey, nice flying today, I'll see you in the morning. In over 3 years of flying as Lauren now, that's not happened, not even one time. So the company's pretty awesome, and the people are awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to take it to a lower level, like your actual coworkers, what they did or should have done to make you feel accepted, but if you can.
I think everybody has been wonderful. In fact, the first person I told was one of my coworkers before I even started presenting as Lauren at all, was a female co-pilot. I was going to go see a movie on a labor. She goes, oh, what are you going to see? And I told her name, and it starred a transgender character. And she goes, oh, I'll go see that. And I was like, I don't want this movie to question to. So I did come on to her. She was the first person that did. And what that resulted in is the company has a female pilot group on Facebook. And what that resulted in, about 2 days later, was me getting a phone call from a moderator of that group saying, we want you in our group.
If you're in this room and you're an ally, you know, I appreciate how you were kind of dancing around your question and you kind of alluded to it too. Let me just say, if you're an ally to the LGBT, there's no question you can ask that's going to be wrong, even if you use the wrong term. You use, as long as your heart is that you really want to know and you care, it's going to be appreciated.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. My name is Marissa, and I'm deaf, and I am a big ally for the LGBT community. Very big ally. But that being, thank you. So, with that being said, I was just wanting to find out about, you know, your individual stories as far as how you were able to come out, and how was it to your parents and friends, you know, to tell them that this is going to be your life now. I mean, as far, yeah, you're a pilot, but I mean, as far as your general life, how was it?
Well, like Lauren, I knew at 3. You know, I didn't know about sex, but I knew I was a lesbian. And I was 7 when I found out there were others, because my sister got in trouble for calling my other sister a lesbian. What's that? Someone like but I didn't come out to my parents until I was about 21, and they weren't shocked. It was enlightening to me, LGBT. I was like, well, why didn't you ever say anything? Like, we didn't want to pry. So, but at work, I waited till, like, when I was in the military, it was long before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and I wasn't telling anybody. That is why I separated. I would have stayed in the Marine career out, but had it not been for the fact that I'm a lesbian. But anyway, and then in American, you know, this was the late 80s. It wasn't real pleasant at the time. I waited till I was off probation, and then I just led an authentic life. The older generation didn't like it. I felt like, you know, to me, I didn't care. It wasn't my issue to deal with, so I just let it roll off my back. I figured they'd be retired in a year or two.
But I'll speak to that. I think everyone that comes out has a story. So if you meet somebody who's part of the LGBT community, you know, straight, gay, ally, transgender, lesbian, whatever, don't be afraid to ask. And say, tell me about yourself. Tell me a story about yourself. Because some of the stories are horrible. Horrible stories, and you might regret asking. You might be sitting there like, oh my God, I'm so depressed. Now I got to go home and watch something fun. And some of the stories are very successful. I mean, and everybody's in a different space. Everybody's in a different place in their lives. Everyone's families and job descriptions and the places that they work treat them differently. What we're here trying to do, we're not here, like I said, trying to change anybody's religious or political beliefs or shame anyone for acting in any way, whether you're accepting or not. We're just here to say whatever you believe, when you're working or when you're with someone who's part of the LGBT community, as long as you can treat everyone with dignity and respect, believe what you want, but at least have the decency to treat us with respect.
When you're transgender, keeping it a secret is not an option. I mean, transitioning is a very public thing. You must come out as part of the process. You can't hide it. You can't decide to just go out in public and be yourself and have nobody know. So, but what I will say is you can never predict how a person's going to respond. The friend I had who I thought for sure was going to be the one that was never going to speak to me again, at that moment was going to walk out the door, and that was it. Became my biggest ally. From that day on, would call me every single day. How's it going? What do you need? Can I help you? What's going on? So you can never tell how people respond to coming out there. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
I will say, as an ally, what I did, because when I first was presented with this, I have 3 people who are transgender, multiple who are gay, it turns out, and I was like, well, okay. I did pull them to one side one at a time as they kind of cycled through my group and said, if I use the wrong term or an inappropriate term, pull me aside and tell me, because I don't want to make the same mistake. And eventually we kind of considered it's like a language. So I'm not fluent because I'm not ingrained in the culture, but as my son, who is gay, tells me, you can at least communicate. You know, he says, you're conversational now. So I know most of the terms, and every now and then I will say something, and I'll say, one of my trans people in the crew will, oh, crap, I better check with them. But as allies, that's what you have to do. There is language that we use that is offensive, I've discovered, that we don't realize is offensive. You just have to lay it out there, bare your own soul and say, what am I doing wrong? What term should I use? What do you want me to say in this situation?
So to add to that, the transgender community, if you encounter a transgender person who's maybe in the process of transition, if you're not sure, just based on their presentation, you should be calling them he or her or she or him. Ask. It's very proper in the trans community to say, hi, I'm Lauren, I go by she, her pronouns, what pronouns should I use with you? And that's absolutely acceptable and actually encouraged.
And that was my biggest screw up. I'll be open about that.
Yes.
I have a quick question for Kathi. Kathi, do you wish your parents had asked you if they, at 21, they knew? Do you wish at an earlier age they had come to you?
I was very close to my parents. They're both deceased now, but I was always close to them. And the only reason I really came out is you do hear horrible stories. People, they lose relationship, shock, parents disown them, whatever. And I was very close to them. The only reason I told them was because I was starting to go to bars and having a good time, and my mom was calling me, going, "What are you up to?" "Oh, nothing," you know. And we were starting to drift because I wasn't being honest, you know. And that happens at work too. You know, when you can't be your true authentic self, then you can't form that relationship. And that was my motivation. Was I'm not even giving her a chance. So that's why I told my parents. Do I wish I had told them younger? I don't know. I don't know that we're getting the cutoff. So let's talk in the bar.
And just one last thing, I was lucky because my wife of 31 years, her name's Corey. So my parents were like, "Who are you dating?" "Corey." "Oh, great." "What does Corey do?" "Tattoo artist and martial arts instructor." "Oh, perfect." I got away with it for a little while. All right, so next, please stay here because the next session is the Women in Aviation Sexual Harassment Survey Discussion, #MeToo, which is another first for women in aviation. They will discuss how sexual harassment is being experienced in our industry and what women in aviation is doing to help